YB stays on your neck.
It's on my neck.
A gifted specimen of a human being, right? But because he's had so much success in a relatively short period of time, he hasn't been immersed in the correct fight game, or sitting down, or the people who are around him. They're not boxing people. He needs boxing people around him, and that is the truth. And this is thing that I've spoken to Anthony about this myself. I've said, listen, man, you need to be around more boxing folks.
What did he say?
He's kind of agreeing with me. What you mean? He's kind of agreeing with me, but he needs to be around more boxing people. So just little things. It's like,
yo, my dons, make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and obviously hit the bell for notifications. So we just heard there from Spencer Fearon discussing his conversation with Anthony a la Cash Cow Joshua. Now I think this is quite interesting, because obviously all of us, man, are outsiders. We don't really have a clue what conversations get said or how AJ's feeling, because he's so... Well, he said it himself, he puts up a persona. He covers himself, he holds himself in. But having said that, Spencer Fearon, after the AJ vs Ruiz fight, Spencer Fearon, as you've seen there, told AJ, you need to change the peoples around you. If you associate with trash, not that the people AJ associates with trash, but basically, you are the people you associate with. Now, this is something which, over the last few, probably before June 1st, I wouldn't have said this. I didn't really think much of it, but after June 1st, having seen the reaction, people like Roy Jones, Antonio Tarver, Foreman, Lennox Lewis, everyone saying he needs to be surrounded with killers, or at least have some element. When you look at him, he is the only killer. He's not in a pool of killers. Does that make sense? I think I'm not explaining myself well. Let me try again. Bottom line is, look at AJ's team. He's at the top of the pyramid. There's no one that he can really look up to. In fact, everyone's looking up to him. Yes, massa. No, massa. Yes, boss. No, boss. In a way, you need that. And that's why I've been imploring him to change trainers. You need to look up to. You need to respect people. Not that he doesn't respect McCrackhead. I'm not saying that. He respects him, but you need more than that. You need to, like Mike Tyson when he talks about Customato. Yeah? When Mike Tyson talks about Customato, there's that hypnotism almost. They've got that deep, I'm not even sure what word it is, but they've got that deep, it's hard to explain, but I hope you can understand what I mean. All the great trainer-fighter relationships, they're more than just respect. Like Mike Tyson would talk about how when he'd go into the fight, he'd love to want to show Customato. He'd love to want to implement the things that Customato talks about. After a fight, he wouldn't be interested in winning or losing this, or he wouldn't be interested in anything else. He'd just want to see how Customato reacted, what Customato had to say about his performance. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's that idolising almost of someone. Now, I mentioned, I'm not really explaining myself well, but I think you probably can understand what I'm saying. AJ, in his camp, he is the boss man. If he was to bring someone in like George Foreman, who's more accomplished than he is, or someone like, they don't even necessarily have to be more accomplished than him, but they need to have been to that level. They need to understand things. He needs to, when, for example, Lennox Lewis or George Foreman speaks, AJ listens because he knows, you know what you're talking about. You've been there. You've been through these things you're asking me to do. You've done them. Yeah? Let's call a spade here. Robert McCrappen, the things he's asking AJ to do, he could never do them. Now, some fighters do okay. They're able to do things without that. But it's few and far between. In fact, in reality, how many fighters are there who are really able to implement what their trainers are asking them to do? And I just feel I have to agree with Spencer Fearon. AJ's team, they're full of nice dudes, his friends and whatnot, but there's no killers in there. There's no one in there that which AJ can aspire to be like or can learn from, I don't feel. Who in AJ's camp can you sit there and say, this dude can really offer something to AJ that he doesn't already know? He's done everything. And there's no one in AJ's camp who's actually done anything. Even when you look at his, you know me, I've been quite critical of AJ's strength and conditioning program and his cardio. Oh, and this is the problem, I've said it myself. From a sporting perspective which I've come from, at an international level, You've got all these science people who never even got to that level. Does that make sense? A lot of all of these sports science dons, they never really got to international sporting level themselves. So you got to ask yourself, what do you know about that? You're telling me to do something you don't even know really works, because otherwise you would have done it. If you knew so damn much, why wasn't you at an international level? Why wasn't you winning medals, etc., etc.? That's the issue you have here. And Rob McCracken, like Lennox Lewis said, he was never good himself in boxing. Now, that's not to say good trainers can come along, but what AJ needs is beyond skill at this point. There's been some questions about his mental attitude and whatnot. Even before the Ruiz fight, people were talking about how he's brought in US Marines and stuff like that. So, it's not a case of being mentally weak or mentally strong. The bottom line is, people like Fury people will sit there and talk about how mentally strong Fury is, about how he'll never quit, but he's proven himself is a walking contradiction, because he jacked it and give his belts up. That's something AJ's never done. So we can all sit here and say, oh, Fury's never quit. Yeah, but AJ's also never run away from his belts either. But anyway, back to the topic of this video. I have to 100% agree with Spencer Fearon. And not only Spencer Fearon, because he never done squat in the sport either, if we're honest with ourselves. But the bottom line is, I've been wanting to do videos on this. Roy Jones, name any of the top fighters, the all-time greats, the Hall of Famers. They've all been saying the same thing. He needs that little bit of edge in his camp. And I also have to agree with Spencer Fearon. Spencer Fearon says that I don't necessarily think he needs to get rid of McCracken. Although I wouldn't listen. If it came to it, if someone said to me, YB, would you rather AJ stay with McCracken or get rid of him and get someone else? I'd take the get rid of him and get someone else at this point, because I just feel, look at AJ's career. I exposed it a couple of days ago. AJ hasn't improved in 7 years. Yeah? Not the basic things haven't got better. He definitely hasn't improved in the last 4 years, which is not good enough at this level. And McCracken has taken him to the edge. Yeah? He hasn't got nothing more to offer. And for me, in the fight, especially when you're under it, you need to be able to believe in your trainer. And I've said it myself, I don't believe AJ believes in McCracken. That's why, when he was being given instructions, AJ believed, you know what, I know better than McCracken. I don't have the respect to follow him. And I keep using this analogy, but it's perfect. Look at football managers. Football managers, when the team lose confidence or lose, not respect, but when they lose that following, that leadership, it all goes to pot. Suddenly, they can bring another manager in, and they win in games. That shows there. And football's nothing to do with boxing. Boxing's a whole nother level, in terms of the psychological conditioning you need to get as well, which I don't think McCracken's doing. I don't believe it myself. As an example, how can AJ be staying up till 3 AM the night before, going over stuff and we're looking at fights and trying to find an edge? What's McCracken been doing? That there isn't just showing that AJ's not in the right mental state. Also, that shows that AJ wasn't positive before the fight, or had some lacking confidence. If my fighter was up there watching things until 3 AM the night before, I'll be thinking, wait there a minute, we've got serious issues here. Real serious issues to do with confidence. Because, to be honest with you, a week before, or at least a day, bottom line is a day before, there should be nothing more you need to know. You should be 100% confident in what you do at that point, because nothing's going to change. Watching no amount of film 24 hours before is going to change anything. That shows there a dip in confidence, which McCracken didn't pick up on, because I don't believe McCracken, like the old-time great trainers, would spend, people like Customato, would spend more time, actually, more time in the gym. Training's one thing. They would spend more time sitting down, talking about the mentality, what it takes to be a fighter, yeah, and etc. etc. And I'm not an old-time great coach, so I can't go into detail about the things they would talk about, but I know it happened. When you talk to people like Mike Tyson about his experience, he talk about how he used to love sitting down with Customato, and Customato giving him the philosophy of a fighter and instilling him that deep spirit, yeah. I just don't believe that's happening with McCracken. I really don't. Maybe I'm wrong, and if I am wrong, I'll put my hands up and apologise, but I don't see it. I don't think he's got it in him to do that. And bottom line is, well, what we observe in terms of the training, the cardio, the spirit, etc., etc., it wasn't there anyway, so it comes down to, he ain't got the tools. I'm sorry, he hasn't. McCracken has not got the tools. And to not isolate McCracken, take him out of the equation. More broadly, with what Spencer Fearon was saying, the bottom line is, he does certainly need at least one. Bring one dude in there, a foreman. Someone of that caliber, bring one guy. And it's not like you haven't got the money. You've got plenty of money. And for all you know, but look at it this way. The worst case scenario, he won't add anything. And all you've lost is probably a couple $100,000. That's it. Worst case, you lost a couple $100,000. But the upside will be unbelievable. If AJ can start believing and... Well, I can't really... It's hard for me to explain, because I'm not an expert in that sort of part of it. But what I do know is, having... An idol's the wrong word. What do they call it? When you look up to someone. A role model. I guess that's a good example. A role model. But it's more specific and particular than that, because this is the heat. We're talking about the heat of battle here. I've never been in the heat of battle. I've never been in a world championship setting. And neither has Rob McCracken, to be fair. So what does he really know about that? And this is what I'm trying to say. This is why you need someone of that top caliber. And it's not even... Being world champion isn't even enough. You really need them, that very particular, the 1% of the 1%, who have been in their massive fights. Because that's what it comes down to now. Regardless of this Ruiz fight, when you look at the Wilder and Fury fights, that's what we're going to be talking about. Has McCracken got the experience and the empathy from them experiences to be able to pass on to AJ? I don't believe he has. Not from what I've seen anyway. That's what I think. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but Spencer Fearon seems to think it. Roy Jones seems to think it. Antonio Tarver seems to think it. The coach I brought up yesterday seems to think it. Mike Tyson's former coach. Everyone's saying it. We can't all be wrong. And it's easy for people to say, oh yeah, well, everyone's only complaining, now it's gone wrong. But that's when you see the biggest cracks. When AJ's running through people, of course it makes everything look good. But let's not get it twisted. Ruiz wasn't that good. It didn't take much for the pressures to bite. It didn't take much for the pressure pipes to burst, which tells me the fundamentals, the foundations and fundamentals were extremely weak. Does that make sense? It wasn't like Ruiz was some 50-50 fight that it could have gone either way. This was meant to be a complete blowout. And the fact that they're saying he was fine shows to me that there's something fundamentally going wrong here. If you're telling me there was nothing wrong with him in the camp, and that was the performance, that shows to me McCracken is out of his depth. Simple as that. Just like that Stacey dude who used to train Mike Tyson said yesterday. I did a video on it. So that for me is important. I'm glad to see, because like we just heard from Spencer Fearon and AJ actually agreed. Spencer Fearon says here that he spoke with AJ and says you need to start associating more with people in... Not just fight people, but you need to start associating with people and being around people. That's how you learn. That's how you get that vibe. As an example, if you hang around with a load of depressed people, you're gonna become depressed, or you're gonna get that vibe. If you hang around with a load of cokeheads, you're probably gonna start having a few lines. That's the way it goes. Bottom line. Now, if you're hanging around with killers, when I say killers, I mean not even necessarily killers. It's probably the wrong way of saying it. When you hang around with people who have been through the stuff that you're going to go through, because it's a very 90% mental, boxing is, and I can only imagine what it's like. Even the little bits I've done trying to prepare your mind to go into a fight. I can only imagine how nerve-wracking and whatnot that is. And it's not only about being, oh, he's nervous, he can't handle the nerves. It's also about learning how to maximise, how to thrive in it. Not only dealing with it isn't enough. You need to learn how to turn that into energy, etc., etc. And that's just one particular point. There's many other things that being around these type of people will add. And like I've just said a minute ago, the worst, what have you got to lose? Maybe it won't. Maybe I'm talking crap. But I feel, for the small price it will cost you, you ain't got much to lose. And thankfully, from what we've heard from Spencer Fearon, allegedly, Anthony Joshua agrees. AJ agrees that he should bring people in. So let's see if he does make them changes. And to be honest, it's not even real changes, because we're not asking for him to trade out McCracken and bring in Foreman and Tyson and whatnot. We're asking, or Spencer Fearon's implying, Adam. In fact, Spencer Fearon said that he shouldn't even get rid of McCracken. He believes he should keep him and bring more people in. But the bottom line is, for me, definitely, people need to be added. And hearing AJ say there that he agrees, let's see. It won't take long, the next 2 or 3 months. If they're not in the camp in the next 2 or 3 months, they ain't coming. So maybe when you speak to people and people give you advice, I'm not sure, I wasn't there, and I haven't got much of an idea from Spencer Fearon, but as we saw there, Spencer Fearon said that AJ agreed with him, but sometimes when people give you advice, you can kind of nod your head and say, yeah, you're right, and then leave the conversation and think, what's that twat talking about? So I don't know, all we can wait for now is the actions. If he does bring people in, we'll know that he genuinely valued that advice. If he doesn't, he won't believe in it. But this is all we've been really asking for at this point. He needs, and I'm sorry, but if it was 50-50, if some of the elite fighters of old age were saying, yeah, no, I think his team's fine, he just needs to do this, that, the other, that might be okay. But the fact that every single one is saying he needs to bring something else in, trainers are saying it, fighters are saying it. At what point do you sit back and think, you know what, he's making some good points there? And I'm sorry, off that performance, you do need to bring someone in. You do. And regardless of that performance, look at AJ's progression. The progression hasn't been there, unfortunately. So it's not all of the technicals aren't okay. People saying, oh, well, you're only moaning now he's lost. No, it isn't okay, the progression. The fact that he's been able to get through on athleticism and experience from 10 years ago, he's fighting more or less the same he was fighting 6, 7, 8 years ago. What skills, people who don't believe me, what skills has he added in the last 4 or 5 years? 4 or 5 years later, his conditioning shouldn't be ever an issue now 5 years later. It doesn't take you 5 years to get your gas tank right. That itself, it doesn't take you 5 years to get your weight down once you've identified it's an issue. All of these things added up. Bringing someone who... Last thing I'll say actually, bringing someone in that not only is a role model but can inspire you. When you're inspired, that can help you lose your weight. That can help you get in shape properly with cardio, etc., etc. That's what you need sometimes, but you need to be inspired, because when you're working out and you're the biggest and baddest in the gym and everyone's looking up to you, it's easy to take your foot off the gas. When you've got someone in there and you're working for them, you're working to please them, in a way. It sounds cheesy, but that's what it comes down to. You want them to see you, or you want to, I guess you want to not satisfy them, but I'm trying to think. Well, that's how, from my experience, when you've got a trainer, when you're doing reps or whatever, you want to do it, you want to perform for them. And obviously, and yourself, but you want to do it. Well, you're inspired, I guess, that's what it is. You're motivated and inspired to perform. Bottom line. And I'm not sure McCracken does that. And looking at how it worked, AJ was being told things and he weren't doing that, which tells me he's not inspired. Which tells me he doesn't look at McCracken as a role model. That's what I feel. Anyway, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe AJ wouldn't listen to anyone. But I'll bet you bottom dollar, if he was in there with a dude who he knows has been there before and been through similar things, he might have a different perspective on it. But that's my opinion. I'll be intrigued to see what you guys think. Do you think AJ will change? Do you think he'll bring someone in? Who do you think he should bring in? If you don't think he should bring someone in, explain why. And I think that's about it. And it's going to be intriguing anyway, either way it goes on this one, because I'm just glad that at least we've heard something from Spencer Fearon, that AJ's at least thinking about these things. At least considering them, because all I know is when you're surrounded by a whole heap of yes men, which AJ's team is, a whole heap of yes men who've never done anything like he's trying to do. I just think it's a deadly combination, historically speaking. Who has actually been able to maintain that with a whole load of yes men? I'm not sure. And actually, before I go, I've just watched the clip again, and I'm actually not disappointed, but having watched Spencer Fearon, the interviewer says to him, what did Anthony Joshua say when you said you need to be around more boxing people? And he said, yeah, well, he agreed with me. He kind of agreed with me. Which doesn't tell me that AJ's too open to the matter, or open to the idea, which is disappointing to hear. This is what needs to happen. This is what I've been saying. Not only, forget what YB says. This is what all-time great boxers, Hall of Famers have been saying consistently. I'm sorry, when you've got 10 Hall of Famers saying the same damn thing, you got to open up your ears, bruv. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure if it was some, I don't know, you got a whole load of moist guys around you. No word of a lie. A whole load of moist dons around you. That's what it comes down to. Bottom line. A whole load of moist dons who ain't never done nothing And listen, neither is YB. But I wouldn't be sitting here saying, oh yeah, bring me in because I'm going to be able to inspire you and know what it's like to go through a world championship fight. I can't do that. I ain't got them skills. Now, I can get you in cardiovascular shape, but in terms of the things that Spencer Fearon's talking about, being inspired, being motivated, having a, well, not an idol, keep using the wrong word, having a role model, etc., etc., to look up to, that's got to come from one of them Hall of Famer dudes. So for you to be sitting there and saying, oh, yeah, I kind of agree. You ain't got one of them. McCrappen never could do it himself. How can he tell you to do... How can he inspire you when he jacked? He didn't have it in him. He didn't have a world championship in him. So how can he inspire you or motivate you to do that? You need to bring someone in. And all these other leeches you got round you who don't know nothing about nothing, they're no good. No doubt they'll be telling you, nah, AJ, don't worry about that. Keep these dead moist guys around you. That's what they'll be saying, because they'll be thinking, oops, here goes my meal ticket. And that's how you can tell they haven't got their best interests, AJ's best interests at heart. And this is how I expose Rob McCrappen, because he should have come out really and said, AJ, it's best now. I've taken you to the limits. Let's try and find you. I'll help you. Let's try and find someone else to bring in. If they see if they can add some value. McCrappen hasn't said that. He wants to hold on to the money. Bottom line.